The dynamic discovery policy has been built to empower you and your organization to identify the applications that your users are accessing in their relative application segments. From a policy point, you will need to establish a rule for the discovery feature that you would like to have. In this example, I've created a discovery rule for a singular domain, that being wentinovi.com. However, it is possible to build out this discovery policy to multiple domains, or even multiple domains and IP spaces. To view the actual rule definition, click on the pencil icon on the right. In this example, you'll observe that my policy engine rule here is actually quite simple. I have defined a singular application segment, and access is granted to anyone who meets the SAML attribute that I've defined here. In this case, it's defined as anything. And so anyone who's authorized to access my Zscaler private access instance will be able to access this policy rule. Unless, of course, it hit a rule above this catch-all rule. But in this example, I've defined a singular application segment. You could define multiple segments or multiple segment groups. So now that I have this singular application segment defined, and that is defined for any SAML attribute, essentially flagging this for anything that didn't hit the rules above, I'm going to save this rule and have it stored as the last rule in my policy engine. A pro tip for those security and firewall engineers and admins out there: you need to think of the Zscaler private access discovery policy as being very much like a catch-all in your firewall, that last rule to catch anything that didn't fire above. And with Zscaler private access, this rule will catch and flag anything that didn't hit on the rules above, and then show it on the Zscaler private access dashboard here under the discovered applications, both here in summary and here in detail. Okay, so now you've seen where the discovered applications go. Let's dig into the actual policy that I've created to identify these discovered applications. To do that, click on Administration and then Application Segments. Here I'm going to find my dynamic discovery rule, and I'm going to edit this so you can see it in detail. Within any application segment, there's a number of features that we could discuss, but I want to focus purely on the application definition. And here you can see I have defined a wildcard or a star domain. In this case, it's star.wentinovi.com. What this means is that if any application or any hostname or any call from a user side that requests a prefixed application, for example, of host1 or crm.wentinovi.com, will flag and hit this rule. I can also define an IP range. Here is a CIDR range that catches anything within that /24 network that I have. Now, moving on to the TCP and UDP port range, you'll see here that I've defined pretty much every port within the port range from 165.535, except that is of UDP 53, which is, as we all know, DNS. We don't want to be sending DNS traffic down a ZPA tunnel. We want DNS traffic to stay local on the Zscaler app client, where it can do local resolution. Therefore, we exclude that from this and only send the ports we want to down for discovery. This way, in this configuration, any user accessing an application within these star.wentinovi.com or within that IP range CIDR on any port, except DNS of course, will flag and hit on this rule and be allowed access. As an additional sub-pro tip, you can actually define your own specific ranges of ports here should you know what you want to be identifying within the domain space or IP space. But that should be something that we do later on in the second or third stages of a ZPA policy definition. You should be starting with this wildcard to identify the applications that your users are accessing. More times than not, most companies don't actually have a full list of what the internal applications are. Therefore, discovery with ZPA will allow you to identify those internal applications and things like Shadow IT as well. One last thing to confirm within the configuration is that you have the appropriate server group defined. Here I have all of my Wentinovi internal hosts. The server groups are what pins this application, the application segment, to the correct connectors. So in this situation, my server group is all Wentinovi hosts, and that leverages the set of connectors for my internal Zscaler private access lab. Once you've done that, just click on Save. Now, the definition of your dynamic discovery policy is not complete until you have defined a server group. Now, you saw me just flag that a second ago for all Wentinovi hosts. Let's go in and see what that actually contains. To do that, click on the administration menu and server groups. Do note that we have a column here indicating which of the server groups actually has the discovery functionality enabled. Now, the reasons why you would not use discovery would be that if you know a specific application exists on a specific server, so therefore you would define that as a one-to-one relationship. But in general, you want the discovery to happen, whereas the connectors within Zscaler Private Access look up in the local network and discover what that application is and where it is. So let me edit this and you can see exactly what I've defined for my internal all Wentinovi hosts. Right away, the most important thing to focus on here is that you have dynamic server discovery enabled. The moment you turn this off, you'll have to define the specific servers that your applications are trying to connect to. Using discovery, we, with Zscaler Private Access, with the connectors, will actually ask the local network where the application is, hey, can I connect to the application, and where actually is that application? Finally, you should define the set of connectors that you would like to use for this application discovery. In this example, I'm using pretty much every connector group that I have within my environment. After all, this is my all Wentinovi hosts server group. Click Save, and now you've created a policy with an application segment for discovery of all of your applications that you didn't know about before.